Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in for EI Live, the Eisenhower Institute's weekly series providing critical analysis of long-term issues. You can find our past events on YouTube and broadcasting Wednesdays at 11 on 91.1 WZBT, Gettysburg. Today, we are fortunate to be joined by Ryan Woodward, class of 2012, Gettysburg College, and my former students. The only difference now is that whereas Ryan used to ask the questions, now I ask him the questions. We're going to talk a little bit about Congress, the upcoming congressional elections, and the state of politics more generally. And Ryan is so well suited to do this. He currently serves as a senior legislative assistant to Representative Peter King of the 2nd District of New York. I believe that's Suffolk and Nassau County, right, Brian? Yep. And King himself serves on the Financial Services and Homeland Security Committees. And on the latter, he is the ranking member on the Subcommittee on Emergency Preparedness, Response, and Recovery. Welcome, Ryan. It is really great. I get to see you a lot, even since you've graduated, and I really appreciate that. It's so nice to be able to keep in touch. And since I study Congress, I'm constantly asking you questions about it because you're there now. So thank you for coming in. We really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. It's great to be here and great to see you too, Bruce. It's been a while, and it's always great to see you.
Well, I'm going to focus today my questions on the U.S. House because we know you all in the House don't like to talk about the Senate, or as you all call it, right?
The country club, the bourgeois. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The other body, right? Right. I think exactly the antagonisms are much greater between the House and the Senate than between Democrats and Republicans almost, right? So anyway, we'll focus a little bit on the House and House campaigns today. So I guess the first question I wanted to ask was just to try to get a sense of what the House is like right now. So members, right, are currently not only campaigning for re-election, right, but they're also tending to some of their lawmaking responsibilities in the Capitol. So I guess my question is, what is Congress's legislative agenda like for the summer? How full is it? Are committees meeting? And are there procedures in place for remote voting right now? I know that's a lot of questions in one, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as legislative agenda goes for the summer, I think we're trying to look at more of a bare essential from what I'm kind of seeing right now, as far as, kind of more, issues that are, of course, crucial, but are, would be seen as more peripheral right now, are kind of taking a back end. And, I know, McConnell was saying that there's might be potentially a 5th COVID package coming up to, again, address some of the ongoing concerns that have emerged, as we get deeper and deeper into this. It's definitely looking, as far as what the agenda will be, a little fluid right now, just because we don't know what's going to happen. Is this going to ease up more quickly, or are we going to be, kind of here for a while in this current state, working away from the Capitol? So yeah, we'll kind of stay tuned and see what's going on there. As far as committees are concerned in the House, it's kind of going, seems to be committee by committee basis as far as what ranking members and chairmen are deciding right now. I know with Homeland, we're evaluating trying maybe the potential of virtual events. Chairman and ranking member are trying to see what the protocols would be for that. I know in this rules package that we passed, I guess it was last week or 2 weeks ago now, I'm like losing track of time. There were some procedures in place for virtual events, 48 hours notice and things of that nature. And and it will be. We'll see what happens there because a lot of committee business it does need to be done person to person. So kind of see what goes on there. But earliest I've heard is maybe sometime in June. We'll get back, but again, kind of TBD, and if we could get the protocols in place and things of that nature. Voting by proxy, which this is really historic. House has always been exclusively in person. So now I believe it's a member can vote for up to 10 members with another member of Congress's permission. So that's definitely historic.
And so the voting member still needs to be physically present there, but can vote on behalf of other members as well.
Yes. So exactly. So a member has to be on the floor, but if they have the permission of another member of Congress, they can vote on behalf of 9 other members or 10 other
That's,
members. But yeah,
oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah,
Okay,
no,
cool.
it is. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, so that's the idea, is to minimize the number of people on the House floor at any given
Exactly.
time, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. We talk just about campaigns for a second, Ryan. I know that members campaigning is expensive, right? And members need to raise quite a bit of money to running campaigns. I was looking at the average winning candidate for the U.S. House in 2018 spent a bit more than $2 million on his or her campaign. And so one of the staples of the fundraising world is the DC fundraising event. And of course, there are, often dozens of these in any given week. I wonder, can members still raise money? How are they raising money with this? Because it strikes me that it would be really difficult to have one of these fundraisers given COVID-19.
Yeah, no, I mean, your standard Washington, D.C., kind of in-person fundraiser is kind of, it's definitely taking the back burner. There are certainly no in-person fundraisers going on, inside, buildings in Washington, D.C. and meet and greet the candidate and that type of thing. Right now, I mean, members or campaigns are looking at how to adapt. Whether it's kind of e-events like this, where people who can pay to have maybe a certain amount of face time with the congressman or something like that, as far as just kind of moving into similar platform, which you would do with kind of a brick and mortar fundraiser onto a more e-format. I've been talking to a couple of my friends who are campaign managers, and they've been saying, it's kind of met with mixed results so far. Incumbents, because the recognition's there, the base is established. It seems like as a whole, they're having better luck with it. For incoming freshmen potentially are having a little bit more difficulty attracting a crowd, just because their name recognition isn't there. And so that's kind of what's going on there. So just kind of going to, Zoom events and phone calls and things of that nature. So
that's interesting. And what about back home? How are members anticipating that campaigning will change back home in their districts? I mean, can they still get out to events? Are there ways to do events back home to reach out to constituents and to groups that members are interested in touching base with?
Yeah, no, it is definitely going to be interesting because, of course, a lot of members of Congress, still have that kind of old shoe leather attitude, and they want to be out in the community. They want to be greeting people. They want to have that, in-person interaction, because you can really gauge emotions and facial expressions and body language as far as, what the level of care is about a certain issue and things of that nature. And so it is. It's. I think right now campaigns are looking at this, kind of, week to week, seeing, is it going to be possible to, get candidates out there in a responsible manner, or are we going to have to go to like teletown halls or Facebook Live events and things like that, where you kind of do that. I mean, and I know like a huge part of campaigning in our district, because we're a lot of us a bedroom community. Like going to the train station and just kind of, shaking hands and meeting with commuters and just being like, hey, you're on your way to the city. How's the infrastructure going? What are you concerned about? Things like that, from like 6 to 9, during the rush every morning. So it is, that's a great funnel point usually. And you're not going to have that. So anyway, you can kind of like augment that into like social media or kind of over the phone teletown hall thing. Yeah.
I was thinking it must be difficult for members because these folks are sort of by definition extroverts. Yeah. They like being out there with people. They like meeting people. They like talking to people. As you say, train station's a great place to go to meet elected officials running for re-election, right? And so it must be a really difficult thing for members to have to campaign this way.
Yeah.
What are they, in terms of, and I know members are so closely attuned to what's going on, what constituents are thinking back home. And a lot of people, of course, contact members' offices. What is your sense of what members have been hearing from constituents? Is it sort of all COVID-19 and economy related, or are the campaigns in districts, are the people in districts thinking about other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the first few weeks, it was exclusively COVID-19. People were concerned. Look at the lay of the land. What's going to happen to my business? What's in this COVID package? How can I get assistance? How can I get just kind of something to help me survive this rainy day and things of that nature. That's still, I would say, predominantly, what I see that we're hearing. Also people who were abroad who got stuck, how, working with the State Department, get them back, and things of that nature. But you're starting to see a little bit, of other issues that went to the sidelines coming back a bit now that people are, some folks are getting a little bit more, whether, they've been quarantined for a while and they're thinking more outside of COVID, or, they're looking at, the future after COVID and things of that nature. But still predominantly people are definitely concerned about the economy and their health and, what's going on and what we can do and, how,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm asking that question too, because is the campaign, especially in terms of House members, is it necessarily about these issues? And sometimes, House candidates can kind of sort of define the campaign agenda in terms of what they want to run on. But this seems like it's going to be something that people are just going to be talking about a lot in the campaign.
Yeah, and and whether we go through a hard phase two come fall, or or if it fades more into the background, hopefully, then kind of looking at were we prepared enough? If not, what could we have done differently? All that kind of stuff, evaluation, and of course that could go off into a myriad of issues and campaign topics. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the summer, and as we have some downstate primaries that are still going, down ticket primaries that are still going,
Yeah,
and and then of course going into the general.
yeah, absolutely. And this could be too sensitive a question given your position, so you don't have to ask it. You don't have to answer it if you don't want, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
So right now Republicans are going to be running on the ticket with an incumbent president, right? President Trump. And sometimes House members who share the president's party will sort of run with the president, while at other times they will attempt to put some distance between their campaigns and the president's campaign. So I wonder, do you have a sense about what Republicans are thinking about this now, or does it just completely depend on the district?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're going to have some variation depending on the district. I would say, where you have, kind of your typical demographics that, in like Republican districts, that really didn't turn out hard for the president in 2016, maybe evaluating, okay, I might have this, Democrat that's running against me, real middle of the line. My constituency is kind of, tepid on the president. So maybe I'll have to kind of thread the needle a bit, but I would say as a whole, I think a majority of Republicans are going to run close to the president. But again, I think, a couple of months is an eternity in politics. I mean, a few months now. And I think that's especially holds true, right now and with this crisis, especially since it just evolves, so quickly, and we're just kind of, a certain extent learning where we're going a lot, learning while we're going. But I would say as a whole, if I were to say that, everything goes according to how everything has currently gone, and I would say you're going to see a lot of Republicans run close to the president. I know our district, the president is still very popular, and the candidate who, because of course my boss is retiring, the candidate who is looking to replace my boss, Republican, is running close with the president. So
yeah, we'll talk about. I want to get back to that in a second, in that particular race there as well. What's your sense about voter turnout? You think it'll be higher this year, lower, or do you have a sense about how much people are engaged? And obviously, right, voters get engaged later in the summer and after Labor Day, sort of the official start of the season. But Are you anticipating it being more difficult to get voters' attention, less difficult, higher voter turnout, lower? So much seems so uncertain now.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting, how many more people are going to be voting by mail? Do people trust voting by mail as opposed to in person? Or will it be safe to, vote in person, which God willing it will be, come November. And I mean, even if, we're still maintaining social distance, I'm sure states and municipalities are, looking forward to see how they can, evaluate this and keep people responsible and safe, when they come to the ballot box. But if this is still severe come November, that is a question. Well, you have people who are afraid to just turn out, and maybe they're not used to voting by mail, so they won't recognize the deadline, so they'll feel uncomfortable with that process. So it's interesting, and of course. Sometimes absentee ballots have that reputation of, oh, you're not going to count unless it's close and all that.
Right,
it's just
right.
but at the same time, it's important. You should, vote by mail is an option. Absolutely, voting absentee is an option. I mean, I'm not in, Washington right now, and I'm, voting absentee for the primary coming up on June 2nd, and and it is, every vote does count. So yeah.
Yeah, I just sent in a mail-in ballot in my own primary in Maryland.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was easy. Sat down at my table. It struck me as interesting though, because I talked a little bit more to my wife and my daughter, and it was her first time voting. She's 19, and it was a different feel about how we would usually vote. Usually, we go into a voting booth and we make our decisions in private, and this was a sort of family affair around the table. Somebody asked me if I told my daughter who to vote for, given that I'm a political science major, and actually it was quite the opposite. She told me who to vote for. She likes politics too. Another question, I know that maybe you can answer as much as you can. So your member, your boss, Congressman Peter King, who's had a long career in the House, has decided to retire at the end of the 116th Congress. Do you have a sense of why? I know that he's getting on in years and he's had a long career. Is that primarily it, do you think, or is he just? I mean, Washington can be an exhausting place.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was pretty honest with us about his reasoning, and a big part of it was he's close with his family, and his daughter recently moved to North Carolina to pursue an opportunity, and he said he was sitting down with his family during the November recess, and he was saying it's hard to plan out Christmas this year. It's easy to balance between DC and Long Island, but DC, Long Island, North Carolina, it's difficult. So he was evaluating that, and he thought, I'm 76 years old. Maybe I'll just take advantage of time with my family when I'm still in good health. My wife's in good health, and so that was kind of his reasoning. So sorry to see him go. He's been a great boss, but I'm really happy that he's not going to be carried out of there like some people, and we'll get some good quality time with his family. So yeah.
And it's hard though when when Congress loses experienced members like that. They lose members with a lot of institutional memory and a lot of insight into policy and process and so on. So I don't think lots of times people call for term limits and things like that, but there's also enormous value in members who have served for a long time and who know the institution inside out, which I think is probably true of him. So who are the candidates in the race, and what's your sense about that? The way that
there's let's see, we have this individual Gabarino who is running. He's an assemblyman. He is.
Oh, and you haven't had the primary yet, right?
Yes. So we have a primary coming up in June.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Which is kind of unusual to have a congressional primary on Long Island, well, at least in Nassau County. And so we'll, Gabarino, is supported by my boss. I think he's a great candidate. He's an assemblyman, a lot of experience, so we'll see there. We also have Jackie Horton, who's on the Democrat side, who's a former town councilwoman, Babylon, a town in our district. So of course, naturally, I like Gabarino. I'm biased, but no, it's a good field. I think Gabarino is the best guy for the job, but we'll see what happens.
Do you think the district will stay Republican, most likely?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think again, the president is popular in the district, and I think there's going to be some strong coattails, and I think I'm pretty confident that it will stay Republican.
Let me ask you just a couple of more questions about Congress on the inside and sort of public perceptions of Congress and so on. And so, like, from the outside, and this is why I love to talk to you, because you and people like Jamie Fleet, you give us this sort of inside scoop, also a Gettysburg alum. But so from the outside, the optics for Congress look pretty bad, right? There's lots of disagreement. Partisan polarization seems to be getting worse. And, when I talked to Jamie Fleet, and I think it was at the October event that we were at for President Giuliano in DC.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Anyway, Jamie said to me that actually House members agree on more and that there's less partisan division than the public sees sort of from the outside or than the press reports on. And I was kind of really taken back and intrigued by Jamie's observation and wondered if it's your sense too, Ryan. In other words, so are things better on the inside than they are on the outside? And, do campaigns make things heat up on the inside in a way that you might not see otherwise?
Yeah, so I mean, I would agree with Jamie. I mean, things are much better on the inside than would be perceived on the outside. It's I think unfortunately, it's popular when there's disagreement, when there's dissent. It's kind of when everything functions normally, it's boring. No one, people don't want to pick up on that, which is unfortunate because I think government works a lot better than what people are led to believe. And I mean, of course, there's always going to be partisan hangups. You have my boss, being the only Republican to vote for this most recent COVID package. And of course, he said, hey, there's a lot that I do disagree with this in here, but at the same time, it's going to go to a Republican Senate, and we'll work on. I'm confident we'll work on something that will be a really solid piece of legislation. I want to move this forward. America's in crisis. We got to do this, and but yeah, no. I mean, I would say as a whole, absolutely. The general membership of Congress acknowledges that they need to work together and make some good legislation.
Mm-hmm. What do you think it is that it's the sort of perception from the outside? And I was thinking maybe you were getting at this, that, the press doesn't tend to cover things when they function well, right? Like news is almost by definition bad news. And so I wonder, does the press sort of focus in on that conflict more than on when Congress does actually work?
Yeah, because I mean, the conflict is entertaining. I mean, people love to point, Washington being like, oh, those guys down in Washington, they're crazy. Look at them. What's going on? Who's fighting with who? Isn't that ridiculous? What so-and-so saying? Take one sound bite of, the worst part of the speech, pin it against, the Democratic reaction. It's the worst part of that reaction, and kind of go from there. And yeah, so I mean, it is. It's popular. It's it's interesting. It's like watching a verbal WWE. It's when when things are kind of going the way they should, it's just kind of like, all right, next. Congress passed a bill. They did some great things. All right, boring.
Right.
So unfortunately, there's that, well, we got to sell papers, we got to sell stuff. And I mean, not to, knock journalists, because I mean, they do great work, and,
Right.
they keep us in check, and, that's what they should do. But unfortunately, there is more of a focus on what's entertaining.
Yeah. And often, right, the writers of the headlines are not the writers of the articles. So
Hmm.
sometimes if you're just looking at the headline, you'll see a lot of conflict as well. I had another question about Congress, and in this particular Congress in general, and I wondered, again, this is the reason I love to talk to staffers and members. So there are now a record number of women in Congress.
Hmm.
I believe something like 101 in the House. And many of those were newly elected in 2018. Do you think that's impacted the U.S. House at all? And if so, how? Do you see a difference? Can you get a sense of the kind of difference that you're seeing a large group of women make? And I ask that because I find my women students increasingly interested in the U.S. House and for running for office.
Hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think I think there has been a difference. I think because there's different life experiences that inform legislation, and I think as a very perspective as you can get is contributes a lot to making great legislation, and improving Congress as a whole. And I think increasing the number of women within Congress has brought more life experience that women have that are different from men, that have said, hey, like as a woman, I feel I've experienced this through my professional career, and that we need to enact policy that brings women more on par with men, or in the workplace, or
Yeah.
something like that. And it's good that we've been focusing on this, and getting more of a level playing field. So having I think over 100 women in Congress has definitely done that. And no, it's really, really great in making good legislation.
Yeah, and I think to some extent, it's what women do is they sort of bring up issues that men might not think of.
Yeah.
Not that men are opposed to, but just male legislators wouldn't necessarily think about these things, and that's why, I'm sort of intrigued by this notion that we have a Congress that sort of increasingly looks more like the American public. Still a far way off, but nevertheless making strides on this. Do you think women legislate any differently? Are they less partisan, more partisan, the same, different styles at all?
Yeah, I mean, as far as
So I don't want to put you on the spot
No,
with the
no.
next question.
It's kind of funny, more partisan, not as partisan. It's,
Yeah,
it's something I really haven't thought about. I mean, really, again, like going back to like the main difference, I would say, with male and female legislators is just the fact that, I feel there's just, different life experiences that, that inform them, as legislators, inform their opinions on different matters, and what they want to focus on, what they want to propose, and what their priorities are for leadership and their committees.
Mhm.
And I mean, as far as more partisan and less partisan, no, I think like male legislators, you have some real partisan folks, and and then you have others who are more compromising, and I noticed that with female legislators too. So I don't know, like I guess that's pretty much it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's great. That's sort of what I was thinking about. So two last questions I have. Can you just give us a sense of what the typical member is like, member of Congress? I mean, we have such stereotypical versions of members. In the political science textbooks, you don't tend to get anything that we treat members as a whole, right? In the press, we hear bad stories. So what's the typical member like, if there is a typical member?
I mean, one of my favorite things about Congress is, and sometimes least favorite, depending on what kind of geographic issue we're talking about versus ideological, and how that can come sometimes merge into a whole whatever. But I mean, overall, it's really cool, the fact that Congress is like a microcosm of the United States. It's you have people from all over the country, and so I mean, like there's not really a lot that makes a typical member. Yeah, I mean, it is like everybody likes to lump them all together. Oh, they're a congressman, they have, but I mean, not to sound like all Mr. Smithy, but I would say, really the bottom line is, they're a type A personality. They're go-getters. They're pretty much only happy when they're busy working, and if their staff isn't in contact for a while, it's like, hey, have you heard anything? Just checking in, anything, and that kind of thing. But really people who just generally are type A's, go-getters, and really want to make a difference. And everybody has a different reason as to who that got them into politics, whether they were really effective legislators in the state or local level. Or they were even just, a grandmother who, was passionate about education in her community and decided to run, or Carolyn McCarthy, who used to be the district next to us, whose husband was killed by gun violence. She was a nurse, and then she ran for Congress, and she says, I want something done. And but I would say that's kind of the one commonality. And
interesting.
Type A and cares. Yeah.
Type A, busy people. Not a place to go if you don't want action.
Yeah,
business,
pretty much.
Right? Yeah, it sounds like you're describing yourself a little there too. So I'm going
all right, Bruce.
In a good way. I mean that in the most complimentary sense. So that leads to my last question. What are your plans? Like, where do you see yourself 5 years down the road? And are you happy being a staffer? Do you think you would ever run for elective office in your life, perhaps for state legislature or even for U.S. Congress?
Yeah, I mean, I love being a staffer. It's you never know what you're going to get. When you now open up your computer, not walk in the office in the morning, but
right.
It is. It's like life's like a box of chocolates, and it's fun. I've been thrown into like so many different issues that I never thought I would educate myself on, and I'm never bored. And it's been great. So, I mean, I would love to stay on Capitol Hill as long as possible. I mean, we'll see if I'll be able to, with Congressman King retiring. But hopefully I'll be able to stick around. And if that's the case, yeah, I intend to be up there for a while and continue working there. It's been great. And also, I mean, you get to help people. And that's the best part of the job, too. People come to you with issues. They want something done through policy. They've been affected in some major manner by a disease, or, they're an immigrant from a foreign country, and, there's some type of aid issue or something of that nature. And so it's really great to be in a position where you can, take an idea to your boss and you run with it. And then, as far as running goes, I mean, it's a lot to run. And I think what people don't realize is, being a legislator, it's not a great life. I mean, you have to love it. I mean, you're working 7 days a week. When you're away from your family, on average, 3 out of 4 weeks a year, and three out of 4 weeks a month. Down in DC, and then when you're home, it's just like you're out at events, you're constantly out within your district, trying to keep up to date on what's going on with your constituents, and just stay active, stay present. It's a tough job. So I'm happy sticking in DC and doing my best to accumulate some knowledge and assist these folks. So yeah.
Okay, we're going to have to revisit that issue then. Because I think you'd make a great lawmaker, but again, staffers are so important, and people like Ryan actually run the Hill, and that's a good thing. Thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate it. I learned from you so much all the time that we talk about the Hill. It's great to talk to get.
Same here, Bruce.
To get your inside perspective on things, so I really appreciate it, and I hope we can catch up very soon as well, and we'll get you back to the college.
Yes.
For some more conversation as soon as it becomes safe to do so. So thank you, everybody. Ryan, thank you once again. It's always wonderful to see you, and we'll stay in touch.
My pleasure. Sounds good, Bruce. Same here.